The story begins with the hero Yuga and his trusted crew standing at the gates of the Demon Lord's massive fortress. Just before the final battle begins, they hype each other up, ready to take on their ultimate mission. The castle doors slowly groan open, and multiple sinister eyes stare them down from the darkness within. As the group steps inside, they're immediately greeted by the Demon Lord's cocky General Yuki, who wastes no time taunting them, claiming they're far too weak to be any real threat. Without hesitation, the party's mage launches a blazing spell straight at him, but Yuki effortlessly swats it aside. The swordsman charges next, aiming for a quick slash, but Yuki dodges with ease and drives a punishing kick into his gut, sending him flying. Not backing down, the support mage Cecilia casts a buff on Yuga, and he immediately unleashes his ultimate move Excalibur, but Yuki answers with a bottomless dark spell of his own, and the two powers collide in a dazzling clash. Despite Yuga's effort, Yuki overpowers them, wiping out the entire party by himself. With the whole squad down and out, Yuga lies on the floor, defeated, wondering if this is where it all ends. He then blacks out, only to have Yuki, strangely enough, start healing everyone on the ground. But then, his eyes fall on Cecilia and he freezes. She looks absolutely stunning and he can't help but stare. Right then, Yuki's underlings show up and ask if they should finish off the heroes. Caught red-handed admiring Cecilia's face, Yuki gets flustered as his subordinates start teasing him. Annoyed, he orders them to quietly drop the unconscious heroes near a nearby human settlement, muttering a reluctant farewell to his fallen princess. 1 month later, Yuki is summoned to the Demon Lord's chambers. His top aide Zekiel questions how many times these heroes have come back for more, so Yuki replies flatly that it's been 13 times now. Zekiel scoffs, calling them hopeless losers who clearly don't know when to quit. The Demon Lord then asks why Yuki hasn't simply finished them off. Yuki shrugs and says those pathetic wannabes aren't even worth killing. Hearing that, the Demon Lord suggests letting Yuki's subordinates handle it. But Yuki's eyes twitch because he knows his own men wouldn't survive against Yuga's team, and he also doesn't want Cecilia to get hurt. So with a mix of pride and protectiveness, he volunteers to take them out himself. The Demon Lord grins silently, giving Yuki the green light. As Yuki stepped out of the throne room and made his way back to his quarters, a heavy feeling settled in his chest. He couldn't help but worry about the hero's fate. Deep down, he understood he was the only one strong enough to stand against them, and if he didn't, they had the power to kill the Demon Lord themselves. With that in mind, he found himself unsure of what move to make next, especially with the Demon Lord's grip on the world tightening by the day. The following day, the heroes showed up at the Demon Lord's castle once again. After Yuki effortlessly knocked back their swordsman and Yuga, the assault mage Mikana stepped up to retaliate. Her first barrage of magic was blocked without much effort, but right after, she launched a follow-up spell in complete silence, catching him off guard. Still, Yuki managed to react just in time, and the sheer speed of his defense left Mikana stunned. Off to the side, Yuki spotted Cecilia healing her teammates, and the sight made him blush for a moment. He broke into laughter and began mocking the heroes for their pointless attempts at taking him down, but Yuga wasn't backing down and unleashed a mighty Excalibur spell in a last-ditch effort to stop him. Unfortunately, Yuki tanked the blast without flinching and told them plainly that they'd never stand a chance against him. Even so, Yuga stood firm, saying they had no choice but to press on if they wanted to defeat the Demon Lord. Then out of nowhere, Yuki pointed straight at Cecilia and told them he'd let them pass, only if they left her behind. Yuga immediately rejected the idea, but Mikana, trying to stay pragmatic, considered the offer. She argued that Yuki had the strength to wipe them out whenever he felt like it, so they should take the opportunity and focus on their real mission. Yuga still refused to leave their healer behind, but Cecilia spoke up for herself and said she was willing to remain. With heavy hearts, the group moved on, swearing to come back for her after they took down the Demon Lord. Once they were gone, Cecilia turned to Yuki and demanded to know why he'd made her stay. Assuming he was itching for a fight, she quickly prepared a spell, but Yuki threw up his hands and surrendered, asking to talk instead. She questioned why he was introducing himself like a gentleman if he planned to kill her anyway. He simply answered that if he truly wanted her dead, she would have been gone long ago. Slowly lowering her guard, she took a breath and asked what it was he really wanted. Yuki gathers what little courage he has left and confesses that he fell for her the moment he saw her, admitting that he wants to be with her. Cecilia is completely taken aback, but after thinking it over, she gently but firmly rejects him. The rejection hits Yuki so hard that all his will to live drains away. Cecilia assumes he was only trying to deceive her and prepares to strike him again. But when Yuki doesn't even attempt to defend himself, she halts her attack halfway through. Yuki urges her to go on and finish him off, saying he has no desire to keep living. Refusing to believe someone could give up that easily, Cecilia presses him for the truth. He then explains that he has spent his entire life imprisoned inside the Demon Lord's castle, only allowed outside to wipe out human villages, something he never wanted to do. Stunned, Cecilia insists that demons are inherently evil. Yuki responds that even though he looks like a demon, he was actually reincarnated from another world. Still confused, Cecilia listens as he explains that he is human on the inside, trapped in a demon's body. Realizing that reincarnated people usually possess overwhelming power, she questions why he hasn't defeated the Demon Lord himself. Yuki explains that killing the Demon Lord would make him the next ruler of the demons, forcing him to commit horrific acts against humanity. And feeling completely trapped, he believed his fate was to rot away in misery inside his cell forever. But that changed when he met Cecilia, whose presence gave him hope that life still had meaning. But now with even that final hope gone, Yuki believes he has nothing left to live for. At that moment, Cecilia tells him that he must keep living and use his power to protect humanity instead. She believes he can find another purpose in life and offers to help him escape into the outside world. Several days later, the Kingdom of Clarionus holds a grand celebration honoring the heroes for their victory over the Demon Lord. King Dart stands before them, praising their bravery in saving the world from a great evil, and announces that a 3-day festival will be held in their honor. From a hidden spot outside the kingdom, Yuki watches the celebration from afar. Knowing that Cecilia now lives there, he decides to disguise himself as an ordinary human. With a pained expression, he snaps off his demon horn and enters the kingdom. At the same time, Mikana congratulates Yuga on their victory, filling him with joy. He then turns towards Cecilia to celebrate with her, fully aware that their success was largely thanks to her efforts, causing Mikana to feel left out and overlooked. Not long after, Yuki steps into the city's Adventurers Guild to register. The lazy receptionist Kramen lets out a sigh and lazily pulls out a registration form. Once Yuki signs it, Kramen hands over a fresh guild card and explains the basics. He'll start off as an F-rank adventurer, the lowest of the ranks, with S being the highest. He mentions that Yuki can climb the ranks by completing missions, but warns him that it usually takes at least a month just to reach E rank. Before letting him go, Kramen tells him not to lose the card and offers a half-hearted good luck. After that, Yuki takes on a flurry of missions and manages to earn enough coin to rent a room at an inn. A week later, he returns to the guild, where the place is buzzing with rumors about a newbie climbing ranks at lightning speed. While that's going on, Yuki heads to the counter and asks Kramen for more commissions. Kramen, clearly not in the mood for paperwork, snaps at him to go ask the cute receptionist next to him instead. But Yuki flat out refuses, saying he'd rather deal with Kramen instead. Brushing it off, Kramen suddenly eyes Yuki and asks him who he really is. He knows damn well that no average guy jumps from F to D rank in just a week. Yuki plays dumb, but Kramen just sighs and says he can't accuse him of anything since he technically hasn't broken any rules. Right then, a girl wearing a hood walks into the guild and demands that Kramen cancel all of Yuki's pending quests. Yuki turns to see who it is and instantly recognizes Cecilia. Kramen, caught off guard, wonders what the hero Priestess is doing in the guild, but she quickly hushes him and then invites Yuki to come with her for a private talk at her place. While they're riding in Cecilia's carriage, Yuki can't help but wonder why a girl just took him home. When they arrive at her estate, one of the guards spots Yuki stepping out and immediately gets suspicious. He points a spear at him and demands to know what he's doing with Cecilia. But before anything escalates, she steps down and tells the guard that Yuki is a friend. Another guard comes over and pulls the first one back, and Cecilia leads Yuki inside to sit down for tea. Once there, she apologizes for not finding him sooner, but Yuki doesn't mind. He asks how she even managed to track him down in a city this huge, and she tells him it wasn't hard because he's gotten pretty famous after rocketing up to D rank in just a few days. Then out of nowhere, she asks him to quit the Adventurers Guild, completely throwing him off. She goes on to explain that after Yuga beat the Demon Lord, the other nations have started waging proxy wars to seize power. She also tells Yuki that Yuga's already being courted by world leaders, offered money, women, and more power than he could ever wish for. Even though Yuki can't help but feel a little jealous of the hero, he also realizes the guy's just a pawn in the hands of greedy nations. Cecilia warns him that with power like his, he'll attract the same kind of attention, maybe even worse. And since he's stronger than the hero, she's genuinely afraid someone might try to use his strength to conquer the world. Yuki gets where she's coming from, but he still jokes that power doesn't pay rent. Cecilia offers to hire him herself, but admits she can't afford someone of his caliber. She pleads with him anyway, only for Yuki to suddenly ask her to lift her head. Then, with way too much confidence, he says even if the world's most beautiful woman threw herself at him, he'd still turn her down, because his heart only belongs to her. That makes Cecilia burst into laughter, while Yuki instantly regrets going that hard with his words. A moment later, Cecilia's mother, Celia, enters the room. She apologizes for the way her guard acted and sends her maid Sophia to handle the situation. And once Sophia leaves, Celia casually mentions that Cecilia's already getting a ton of marriage proposals. Yuki's eyes widen, especially when he finds out that even Yuga confessed to her. But Cecilia quickly assures him that she rejected the hero flat out. Seeing how red Yuki's face turns, Celia teases him a little and bluntly asks if he has feelings for her daughter. Then she gets straight to the point, asking if he's interested in marrying Cecilia. Caught completely off guard, Yuki wonders if this is some kind of trick question, but Celia insists on a direct answer. He shakes his head and tells her that Cecilia already turned him down once. He explains he's working hard as an adventurer so that one day he'll be able to propose properly. Celia raises an eyebrow and asks if he's really turning down such a generous offer, but Yuki stands firm, saying he'll always respect Cecilia's wishes. That finally earns her approval, and she admits it was a test to see if he'd drool over the opportunity like some desperate lowlife. And since he didn't, she tells him he's welcome to visit their house anytime. Later, Cecilia tells Yuki that her mom might actually like him, and although the idea kind of stresses him out, he's grateful for the chance he got. He then asks if it's okay to start calling her by her first name. She agrees and even calls him by his name. Overwhelmed, Yuki lets out a loud cheer, feeling like he just inched a little closer to winning her heart. The following day, Yuki hunts down a cockatrice for his quest, gliding past every beam it fires like he's just warming up. The more he dodges, the more the creature flips out, screeching like mad and lunging at him with blind fury. But the instant it gets too close, Yuki unleashes a thunder spell so brutal it lights up the area like a lightning storm, frying the oversized bird on the spot. With zero urgency, he strolls up, plucks out all its feathers one by one, and finishes the mission like it was nothing. Right then, a Dullahan appears, and just moments later, a harpy dive bombs from above, launching an attack on Yuki. Then a second boy rushes in to join the assault, forcing Yuki to shout and remind them all that he used to be their leader. When they finally recognize that the boy is actually Yuki in disguise, Duke demands to know why he disappeared after the demon lord died. The others are just as confused, prompting Yuki to finally explain why he left so suddenly. He starts by proudly revealing that he confessed to Cecilia and got brutally turned down. Then he tells them that he's now living as a human adventurer. All three demons are stunned, but Yuki quickly tells them they're free to live their lives without him. But none of them are willing to walk away from their former master. They're way too curious about the girl who drove him to quit his old life. Yuki insists they stay behind, warning them about the headaches of hiding their identities with convincing disguises, but none of them back off. Eventually, Yuki gives in and agrees to let them tag along. He removes their demonic traits one by one, but when Cecilia learns that Yuki went as far as to pluck every feather off the poor harpy, she completely lays into him for being a heartless jerk. Yuki admits he messed up and apologizes, much to the demon's amusement as they watch him get chewed out. Later, Cecilia invites everyone into her home for some tea. She's surprised by how well all three demons managed to blend in with human appearances. Duke explains that he reattached his head to his armor, while Seek the Pixie and Happiness the Harpy ditched their most noticeable traits to blend into society. He also tells Cecilia that Yuki was the real reason their group was so relaxed and chaotic. Back at the Demon Lord's castle, Zykill would constantly pressure Yuki to work, but Yuki always locked himself in his room and flat out refused, driving the Demon Lord up the wall. At one point, Duke thought it'd be smart to punish him, but ended up getting his head blown off for the trouble. Since then, he's been loyal to Yuki ever since, and Cecilia finally understands how much the demons respect him. Right then, Yuki notices the other two demons are nowhere to be found. Knowing they can't risk being spotted, the group quickly sets off to track down the missing misfits. As they pass through the mansion's courtyard, they find Seek curled up and napping on Celia's lap. Yuki immediately apologizes for whatever trouble his friend might have caused, but Celia brushes it off with a smile. She explains that she'd just been quietly watching Seek while he played alone, and he eventually dozed off from exhaustion. Yuki nods in understanding, but then asks where Happiness went since she was supposed to be with Seek. That's when Celia drops the surprise that Sophia had already found her and took her in to train her as a maid. The whole gang rushes back inside and confronts Sophia, demanding to know why she abducted their innocent friend. Once Sophia realizes Happiness is with Yuki, she admits that she was expecting a new maid today and just assumed Happiness was the one. Yuki apologizes for the mix-up and tells Happiness to go ahead and change out of the outfit. But for some reason, she flat out refuses. Instead, she turns to Sophia and asks if she can just keep the job, leaving everyone frozen in disbelief. In the end, the group congratulates Happiness on landing her new gig. As they get ready to head out, Celia kindly tells the demons they're welcome to visit anytime. Then she sneaks up beside Yuki and quietly whispers that Cecilia has a day off coming soon, hinting that he should take her out. Grinning like a fool, Yuki eagerly agrees, thrilled that the parents are finally giving him the green light for a real date. The following morning, he waits patiently at their meeting spot. Soon enough, a carriage rolls in and Cecilia steps out wearing a charming disguise. Yuki stares at her, stunned, until she nervously asks if something's wrong. He quickly explains that her glasses just completely threw him off, so she reminds him that she has to stay hidden. After all, everyone in the city knows her face. She apologizes for dragging him into all this trouble, but Yuki just shakes his head and promises he'll make this their best day yet. The two of them then wander through the lively streets together. While walking, Cecilia spots a cozy little bakery and makes a mental note to come back for tea. She soon pauses to admire some lovely flowers at a corner stall, though Yuki secretly thinks none of them even come close to her. A bit later, she crouches down to pet a nearby cat and playfully starts making cute meowing sounds, forcing Yuki to glance away before he loses his mind. Not long after, the pair stroll into a boutique where Yuki helps her pick out a stunning red dress. After that, Cecilia thanks Yuki for spending the day with her, saying she finally feels refreshed from her usual exhausting routine. Caught off guard, he's genuinely glad that his presence helped ease her stress. Wanting to make the outing a little more memorable, he brings her to a small accessory shop to buy her a little gift. Not far off, Yuga is also strolling around the city with Mikana, both of them disguised. The moment he spots Cecilia, Yuga instantly calls out, but Mikana quickly shuts him up, trying to keep their cover intact. Still, Yuga strolls right up to Cecilia, casually asking what she's doing out here. He tells her he's just out exploring the town with Mikana and casually invites her to tag along, completely ignoring Yuki like he doesn't even exist. Cecilia tries to point out that she's actually spending time with Yuki, so Yuga reluctantly agrees to let him come too. Then without waiting, he grabs Cecilia and drags her off toward the accessory store, leaving Mikana visibly annoyed that her first real date just got hijacked. She turns to Yuki and bluntly asks if he's on a date with Cecilia too. When he nods, Mikana immediately orders him to seduce Cecilia, hoping it'll finally shift Yuga's attention back to her. While Yuki's brain starts to overheat, thinking Mikana's being supportive, she snaps him out of it by flat out calling him a pathetic eyesore. She storms into the store, leaving Yuki standing there wondering if Yuga's still trying to flirt with Cecilia even after she turned down his marriage proposal. Fueled by frustration and jealousy, Yuki heads in, dead set on protecting the girl he loves. Once inside, he gently asks Cecilia if she'd like a gift. She hesitates, not wanting to trouble him, but Yuki insists that he wants to make the day feel special for her. Just then, Yuga notices Yuki talking to her and immediately barges in without a shred of manners. While Yuga goes off to get something flashy, Yuki quietly picks out a lovely necklace and gives it to Cecilia. She's delighted by the pretty pendant, clearly touched by the gesture, but the moment doesn't last. Yuga barges back in, flashing the most expensive item in the shop, thinking it'll win her over, but it barely gets a glance. Then without asking, he snatches her hat off and tries to force the accessory onto her, completely blowing her cover. In a flash, the entire store realizes who she is, and a massive crowd swarms them. Yuki gets shoved aside like garbage while the mob rushes Cecilia and sweeps her out of the store. Scraping himself off the floor, Yuki tries to chase after them, only to stumble into another hero getting mobbed by a horde of fangirls. Spotting Levin, the swordsman from Yuga's team, Yuki pauses, unsure if he should step in. Thinking fast, he suddenly points off in a random direction and shouts like he just saw the hero nearby. The starry-eyed girls immediately bolt after the imaginary sighting, leaving Levin behind. With the coast clear, Yuki grabs Levin and pulls him into a secluded alley, since the knight still hasn't said a word. Noticing the silence, Yuki wonders if Levin simply doesn't feel like talking. Just as he turns to walk off, Levin finally calls out in a hesitant voice, clearly embarrassed. Hearing the soft tone, Yuki starts to wonder if the charming knight is insecure about how he sounds. Levin quietly nods and asks if his voice comes off as unmanly. But Yuki doesn't laugh or judge. He tells him straight that everyone's got something they're not too proud of. Caught off guard by the kindness, Levin stares at him while Yuki starts scanning the street for Cecilia. Touched by his thoughtfulness, Levin shyly asks if Yuki would be interested in being his friend. The sudden offer catches Yuki off guard, and just as Levin starts doubting himself, Yuki accepts with a smile before quickly turning back to search for his missing date. After a while of searching, he starts to wonder if Cecilia's alright on her own in such a big, unfamiliar city. On the other side of town, Cecilia is also looking for him when she comes across a lost little boy. She heals a cut on his knee and asks where his parents are. The boy starts tearing up, saying he lost his mom. His cries echo just enough for Yuki to hear from nearby, and he rushes over, stepping in like some wannabe hero. Cecilia blinks in surprise but immediately scolds him for making promises he can't keep. Watching a grown man get lectured leaves the little boy chuckling at Yuki's expense. Shrugging it off, Yuki teams up with Cecilia to help find the boy's mother. While walking, he gently suggests that Cecilia head home in case another crowd causes trouble. But she shakes her head and says she's not backing down. If anything happens again, they'll handle it together. Yuki nods and keeps moving, only to glance back when Cecilia suddenly sneezes, despite the weather being blazing hot. Meanwhile, Yuga's still wandering the city looking for Cecilia. Mikana tells him to drop it and go home, but he brushes her off and takes off running. Left behind, Mikana clenches her fists in frustration, feeling ignored on what was supposed to be their date. Not long after, Yuga catches a glimpse of Cecilia standing with Yuki. He spins around to tell Mikana, only to realize she's completely gone. The following morning, Yuki finds out that Cecilia fainted on her way back home. Celia calmly explains that her daughter caught a nasty cold, and she was already worn out. And thanks to Yuga's little stunt, the crowd pushed her over the edge. Celia also mentions that Yuga kept barging into her daughter's business, so she sent Sophia to handle him. Yuki blinks in shock, wondering how casually Sophia could just toss the hero out like yesterday's trash. But Celia smiles and praises him for taking care of Cecilia so well. She gives him permission to visit her upstairs, and Sophia escorts him to her room. When Sophia knocks on the door, Cecilia panics from inside, mortified at the idea of Yuki seeing her room. Sophia calmly reassures her, mentioning that she already hid the stuffed teddy bear, completely nuking whatever cool points Cecilia had left. Finally, Yuki steps inside, clearly flustered just being in a girl's room. He sits beside her as she lies in bed, looking tired but still smiling. Feeling guilty, Yuki admits it might be his fault she got sick, since he dragged her around so many places. Cecilia plays along and says he'll just have to make it up to her by planning an even better date next time. Lighting up, Yuki leaps to his feet and starts boasting like some over-the-top hero ready to whisk her away on a grand adventure. Watching him put on such a ridiculous act, Cecilia bursts out laughing. That of course doesn't sit well with Sophia, so she storms in, grabs Yuki without hesitation, and chucks him straight out of the room, yelling that he'll only make her condition worse by making her laugh so hard. Later, as Yuki walks home rubbing his back, he spots Levin heading towards Cecilia's mansion. Curious, Yuki stops him and asks what's going on. Levin says he's planning to confess to a girl, and he admits that she made him feel seen. She complimented his soft voice instead of mocking it, and he's been drawn to her ever since. Still, he's not sure he's good enough. Yuki waves it off, telling him that a tall, good-looking guy like him has nothing to worry about. Feeling pumped up, Levin thanks him and walks off towards Cecilia's house. As Yuki watches him leave, he casually wonders who the lucky girl is, only for the realization to hit him like a truck. That kind, supportive girl Levin's in love with, it's gotta be Cecilia. And just like that, Yuki realizes he may have accidentally cheered on his own love rival. Yuki keeps telling himself there's no damn way Cecilia would actually fall for a random last-minute confession from Levin. But then again, they were in the same hero's party, traveling together non-stop, so who knows what could happen between them. That possibility hits him like a punch to the gut, and he starts overthinking everything all over again, until he spots Levin trudging back from the mansion looking like he got hit by a truck. The dude honestly believed the worst-case scenario would be a polite rejection, but clearly he was way off. Now he just wants to disappear into a hot shower and question every decision he's ever made. Seeing Levin that crush gets Yuki curious, so he makes his way back up to the mansion and asks Sophia if she knows what actually went down when Levin came to pour his heart out to Cecilia. But to his surprise, Sophia tells him that Levin didn't come for Cecilia at all. He was here to see Happiness. That throws Yuki for a loop because he had no idea Levin had a thing for her. Without wasting time, he goes off to find Happiness and asks if she spoke with the red-haired guy a little while ago. Happiness nods, confirming it, and when Yuki explains that Levin's his friend, she looks genuinely surprised. Yuki pushes a bit more and asks if it's true that Levin confessed his feelings to her, and if so, what exactly she said to leave him looking so crushed. Happiness hesitates at first, but then admits that when Levin asked her out, she shot him down on the spot, telling him flat out it was never gonna happen. That kind of rejection would wreck anyone, so Yuki gets why Levin looked like a ghost. But if she's not into him, there's really nothing that can be done. Except just as he's about to move on, she adds that she does like Levin. And before Yuki can even make sense of that, she bolts. Later that night, Yuki gathers his squad for a quick meeting to unpack the whole Levin happiness situation. The other two look completely lost, so he explains that Levin is the swordsman from the hero's party. But the second that name comes up, Duke snaps and demands to know why Yuki would let happiness get involved with a human. Yuki quickly defends himself, saying he had nothing to do with it and he doesn't even know how they met in the first place. And that's not the point right now. He tells him Levin confessed to her. And Duke immediately assumes it must have gone horribly, especially since most of the humans who approached happiness in the past were either after her feathers or had weird furry fetishes. Either way, not a great history. But Seek's not convinced she hates humans. After all, she chose to work here as a maid because she genuinely liked the people in the mansion, so if she gave Levin the time of day, it probably means she saw something good in him. The following morning, Yuki shows up at the guild like usual, but something feels off. Kramen isn't around. One of the other receptionists waves him over, recognizing him as the guy who's always chatting with the Vice Guild Master. At first, Yuki's confused because he's never spoken to the Vice Guild Master, but she clarifies that lazy, unbothered Kramen is actually the second in command around here. That hits like a brick, but Yuki brushes it off for now and just asks where the hell Kramen went. It's supposed to be under wraps, but since she knows they're close, the receptionist leans in and quietly tells him the truth. Kramen's in the hospital after getting into it with his wife. Later, Yuki heads over to the hospital to check in on him and is floored by how rough Kramen looks. He asks what happened, and Kramen sighs, explaining that yesterday was his wedding anniversary. He got so caught up trying to pick the perfect gift that he spent the whole damn day glued to a jewelry display. By the time he finally got home, he'd missed dinner, and his wife assumed he had forgotten the anniversary altogether, so things exploded from there. Yuki jokes that Kramen's wife must pack a serious punch if she messed him up this badly. Kramen just nods and says it's to be expected. She's a retired A-rank adventurer. That alone makes Yuki's jaw drop, but Kramen adds that he's a former A-rank himself, just to even the playing field. It'll take some time for all those bruises to heal naturally, so Yuki offers to cast some healing magic. But Kramen immediately shuts that down because being banged up like this is the perfect excuse to get pampered by his wife while he milks it for all it's worth. And right then she walks in, and to Yuki's absolute shock, it turns out to be Sophia. He never in a million years would guess that she and Kramen were a thing. But the way they interact, he can tell they're genuinely happy together, aside from the occasional beatdown. After a little more chatting, Yuki gets ready to head out. Sophia thanks him for visiting, and he tells her it's no big deal since it's normal to check in on a friend when they're down. Before leaving, he brings up Cecilia, asking if she's doing any better. Sophia says her fever broke and she's definitely feeling stronger, but she's out running errands right now, so he won't catch her today. Thinking out loud, Yuki asks if she has any ideas for a nice gift he could give Cecilia. Just something to lift her spirits. Sophia tells him it doesn't have to be anything fancy, as long as it's from the heart. Cecilia will appreciate whatever he chooses. Yuki thanks her for the advice and steps out of the hospital, but as he strolls down the street, his mind drifts off, daydreaming about what life might be like if he and Cecilia ever ended up married. By the time he shakes himself out of it, he realizes he's wandered near the night dorm. Since he's already here, he figures he might as well check in on Levin. He opens the door and finds Levin still lying in bed, just as miserable as he was the day happiness turned him down. It hits Yuki right in the gut, so he decides to try cheering him up. He asks if Levin could walk him through how things even started between them, what led to him falling for her in the first place. Levin sighs and starts explaining. It happened on a pretty normal afternoon while he was out on patrol. That's when he spotted a girl being cornered by a couple of drunk idiots. He didn't waste time, took out the first guy clean, and once the others figured out who they were messing with, they took off running. The job done, so he turned to leave, but before he could take a step, the girl grabbed his cape and thanked him. Levin told her it was nothing, he was just doing his job. But then it hit him. He'd just spoken out loud, and that meant a total stranger had heard his voice. He instantly tensed up, worried she might laugh or mock him for how it sounded. But instead, Happiness looked him right in the eye and said she liked it. No sarcasm, no teasing, she genuinely meant it. Levin thought she was messing with him at first, but she was dead serious. While she thanked him one more time, smiled, and took off to finish her errands. And just like that, she was gone. but she'd already left a mark on him. That moment stuck with him. It's what gave him the push to eventually confess, though clearly it didn't go the way he'd hoped. Looking back, Levin admits it might have been too soon. They barely knew each other, and jumping straight into a confession probably made things awkward. Still, Yuki tells him not to throw in the towel just yet. From what he's seen, there might still be a shot, and in the meantime, they should get out of this place and clear their heads. So the two of them head out, and Yuki ends up bringing Levin to the same jewelry shop he visited with Cecilia a while back, the one where he never got around to buying that necklace. While browsing, Levin's eyes land on a gorgeous pendant that immediately makes him think of happiness. He hesitates, unsure if it's weird to buy a gift for someone he barely knows, but Yuki tells him not to overthink it. It's not about making a move, it's about the thought behind it. And honestly, the piece suits her so well, there's no way she won't appreciate it. Levin ends up buying the pendant, but since he doesn't like people hearing his voice, he quietly communicates with the cashier using pen and paper. Once the purchase is done and they're heading out of the store, Yuki and Levin suddenly run into Mikana, who's clearly surprised to see both of them walking out of a jewelry shop together. She raises an eyebrow and asks what they're doing here, and without missing a beat, Yuki tells her they're picking out gifts for the women they're in love with. Mikana already knew about Yuki's obvious crush on Cecilia, so that doesn't shock her one bit. But hearing that Levin's got someone on his mind is new, so she instantly presses him to spill the details. But Levin just shuts down and refuses to say a word, and honestly she knows why. A while back she joked about the way he sounded, and ever since then, he's been way too self-conscious to talk around her. She genuinely regrets it. She's apologized already, but even she knows an apology doesn't magically fix things, so she backs off a bit and doesn't push. Still, even if he won't talk to her, she's dying to know who he's crushing on. So she invites both of them out for lunch, hoping to get the story that way. But unfortunately for her, the second they sit down, the two idiots start scarfing down food like their lives depend on it, clearly trying to avoid answering anything. Solid plan, until Mikana casually drops the bomb that she might have some juicy stories about Cecilia if Yuki's willing to talk. And that's all it takes. He caves instantly. She jumps right in and asks how far things have gone between him and Cecilia. But Yuki just shrugs, saying there's nothing going on yet. He mentions that she's gotten a flood of marriage proposals, even one from Yuga, which makes Mikana visibly annoyed. She can't understand how the guy still hasn't picked up on any of her signals. He's always been a clueless moron, the kind who'd accidentally walk in on Cecilia while she was changing or in the bath, without even realizing what he'd done. And no matter where they went, girls would swarm him like moths to a flame. It wasn't like he did it on purpose, but that laid-back attitude of his really grated on Cecilia's nerves. And when she's pissed, she's terrifying. Mikana then turns back to Levin and tries again, asking about his crush, but before he can even respond, Yuki cuts her off because he's not about to let her mess with Levin. She quickly defends herself, saying she's not trying to tease him or make fun of him. She's just got some love-life problems of her own and thought maybe talking about them with someone would help. To be honest, she's convinced Yuga resents her for something she did. She tells Yuki that even though the kingdom's official report claimed they crushed the Demon Lord, the truth is, they got their asses handed to them multiple times by some random demon general, no less. And every single time they lost, they'd end up waking in a nearby village, all healed up like nothing happened. But it didn't matter how many times they regrouped and came back. That same demon kept trashing them worse each time. Yuki starts feeling kind of guilty at this point, remembering how he deliberately stalled their progress a few times just so he could sneak a few extra glances at Cecilia. Still, it's not like he meant to humiliate them. Either way, after every defeat, the hero party had no choice but to lie to the public and pretend they were winning, just to keep morale from falling apart. But their supplies were drying up, and if they didn't take that demon down soon, the people were going to lose all faith in them. That's when, during one of their attempts, the demon made them a deal. It said it would let them walk straight into the Demon Lord's throne room without resistance, on one condition: they leave Cecilia behind. And it was Mikana who pushed the group to accept. Her argument was that if they failed again, Yuga's reputation as a hero would be ruined, so they agreed and left Cecilia behind. She survived somehow, but Mikana doesn't think Yuga has forgiven her for what she did. He still smiles and jokes around, but she can feel it. His view of her changed that day. Cecilia probably sees her differently too, and things have been weird between all of them ever since. Yuki knows this mess is partly on him. His selfish choices helped create the divide in their group, and now it's too tangled for him to fix alone. He asks Mikana if she's at least tried to talk to Cecilia about it. But how is she supposed to bring it up, and what is she supposed to say? Sorry for throwing you to the wolves, but I didn't want Yuga to look bad. That won't exactly fix anything. Yuki gets it. It's not an easy thing to admit, But if she doesn't say anything, this awkward silence between them is going to last forever, so he tells her to at least think about facing it. Mikana quietly nods, realizing he's right. If she ever wants things to feel normal again, she's got to make the effort to fix what she broke. Inspired by that, Levin decides to step up too, and he wants to try talking to Happiness one more time. So he and Yuki make their way back to Cecilia's house. When they find her, Levin quietly apologizes for dumping his feelings on her so suddenly last time. Then, he hands her a pendant he bought and asks if maybe they could start off as just friends. Happiness smiles and likes the sound of that. A couple of days crawl by, and Yuki's basically on life support just from going almost a week without seeing Cecilia. Ever since she bounced back, she's been on the move non-stop, visiting every corner of the village, healing the sick and patching up whoever's hurt. The rest of the hero squad hasn't caught a break either. Levin's tied up with night patrols, Mikana's neck-deep in royal mage responsibilities, and Yuga's been hustling between monster hunts and diplomacy runs. Meanwhile, Yuki's done absolutely nothing but mope in silence like a sad puppy. That's when a miracle knocks on his front door literally. It's Happiness. And she's got a message from the heavens. Well, technically from Cecilia, but close enough. She says Cecilia's finally heading back home this afternoon, which means Yuki gets to see her again at last. He's over the moon since this is his golden chance to give her that necklace he's been holding onto since the last time he missed his shot. So he heads out, hyped and hopeful, until a random old hag running a fortune-telling stall stops him mid-step and blurts out that he's gonna have the worst luck ever today. Should been a red flag, but Yuki laughs it off, calls it a scam in his head, and keeps walking, since he's on his way to see Cecilia. So what the hell could go wrong? First stop, the bakery. He wants to bring her something sweet, so he swings by to grab some cupcakes. Only problem is, the usual lady's off today and had her beefy brother cover for her. And this dude's taking his temporary job like he's running a Michelin-starred war zone. The vibe's awkward as hell, so Yuki just grabs a few cupcakes and bounces. But halfway down the road, he notices the damn things are squashed flat. Thanks to Mr. Muscle's death grip, but thankfully, they still taste fine. But that's just the start. On his way to Cecilia's place, Yuki bumps shoulders with a walking brick of a man, nearly plants his foot in a fresh pile of dog crap, and gets blindsided by some little kid who drops his meat skewer right in the dirt. Yuki could have shrugged and walked off, but no, he's too nice for his own good. He ends up buying the kid a replacement just to stop the waterworks, even though it wasn't even his fault. Up to this point, it's all just been dumb little setbacks. But the universe isn't done yet, because not 2 steps later, some random punk slips by and swipes Yuki's wallet clean. A lot of guys would just call it a loss and move on, but not Yuki. That's his hard-earned cash, and he's not about to let some thief run off with it. So he taps into his power, chases the dude down, and beats the brakes off him. Totally deserved, but the only issue is Yuga rolls up just in time to catch Yuki mid-beat down, looking like he's mugging some poor soul in broad daylight. Yuki tries to set the record straight and explain it's all just a big misunderstanding, but Yuga isn't having it. Instead of listening, he starts swinging, trying to force Yuki to give up without a fight. Now, Yuki could absolutely mop the floor with him if he wanted to, but doing that would blow his cover as an ordinary guy, so instead, he makes a run for it. Problem is, he doesn't get far as his path gets cut off by a squad of knights, and punching his way out would just make things worse down the road. Left with no better option, Yuki throws in the towel and surrenders. They toss him in jail for a crime he didn't even commit, and at this point, he's starting to wonder if that crazy old fortune lady actually knew what she was talking about. Still, it's not a total disaster because he's got people in his corner. Not long after, Duke swings by to check in on him. Turns out, Duke got scouted by the Royal Knights just a few days ago, and he thinks it's hilarious that Yuki's already found himself in such a ridiculous mess. Yuki insists he didn't do anything wrong, but Duke already figured as much. He tells him not to stress because Levin caught wind of the situation and is digging into it as they speak, so it's only a matter of time before it all gets cleared up. Right then, another knight named Irene shows up and gives Yuki the news. He's officially in the clear and free to go. Yuki breathes a huge sigh of relief, but then she drops something unexpected. Apparently, Yuga wants to meet up with him to apologize, which is the last thing Yuki thought he'd hear today. Later that day, the two of them sit down at a restaurant, and Yuga is genuinely apologetic for the whole mess. To make it up to him, he offers to treat him to a proper meal. Yuki is kind of stunned by how sincere and pure the guy seems. There's no trace of bad blood or shady intent, so he accepts the offer. After they finish eating, Yuga tries to strike up some casual conversation. He admits he had no idea Yuki was on good terms with Levin, and even though he didn't recognize him right away, now that they've talked a bit, he realizes that Yuki is the same guy he spotted with Cecilia the other day. So naturally, he asks about their relationship. Yuki keeps it cool and simply replies that the two of them are just friends for now. That clearly puts Yuga at ease, but then he says he wants to ask a favor. He wants tips on how to get along with Cecilia. And honestly, that's the last topic Yuki wants to touch with this guy. He tells Yuga that he and Cecilia only recently became close, so if he's serious about learning how to connect with her, he should probably talk to someone who's known her for way longer, like Mikana. But Yuga quickly shuts that down, saying Mikana probably hates Cecilia's guts, so asking her is out of the question. Yuki's stunned to hear that and immediately asks if Mikana actually said that to Yuga's face, but Yuga admits that she didn't, and he just knows she doesn't like Cecilia. He explains that during the final battle, it was Mikana who convinced the others to leave Cecilia behind, and there's no way she would have done that if she didn't hate her. But Yuki doesn't think that's a fair assumption, especially since Yuga never even talked to her about it. He tells him that Mikana was just as wrecked as the rest of them over what happened. She cried the entire time. But Yuga fires back, asking how the hell Yuki would even know that considering he wasn't there. Now, Yuki does know because he was there. He was the demon that day. But since he obviously can't just drop that bomb, he tells Yuga that Mikana told him. Still, he can't bring himself to believe that Mikana wasn't to blame. Because if she's not, then that would mean he was. That he was the one who failed Cecilia. And if that's true, then he's not sure he could ever forgive himself. Yuki doesn't sugarcoat it. He tells Yuga to quit deflecting and stop dumping the blame on his friends. Because if he can't even own up to his own mistakes, then he's got no right calling himself a hero. That hits Yuga hard, so hard that he suddenly breaks down crying. Yuki immediately wonders if he maybe went a bit too far yelling at him, but turns out the message actually got through. Yuki's words help Yuga realize just how badly he messed up. Mikana's been his ride or die since they were kids. She's stuck with him through everything, backed him up the moment he became a hero, and yet he couldn't bring himself to trust her. Instead, he assumed she left Cecilia out of spite. Now he's just stuck wondering how the hell he's supposed to make things right with her. Yuki tells him the answer's simple. Just say sorry. Mikana clearly still cares about him, and even if she gives him some tough love, she'll forgive him for sure. That puts the fire back in Yuga. He gets hyped up and says he's going to apologize to her right now. Only, he's a bit too nervous to show up alone, so he begs Yuki and Levin to tag along. Eventually, all three of them make it to Mikana's place, and while Yuga is practically vibrating with determination, Yuki's low-key annoyed he had to come all this way when all he wanted was to finally see Cecilia today. Yuga tells them he just needs some emotional backup, so they can wait outside while he goes in to handle it. Yuga walks straight into the house and rushes up to Mikana's room, only to barge in right as she's in the middle of changing. Mikana instantly panics and freaks out, but Yuga stays completely stone-faced and tells her he's got something important to say. He admits he's finally realized how unfair he's been to her all this time, blaming her for abandoning Cecilia when that wasn't even the truth. He knows that just saying sorry won't magically fix everything, but he hopes she can forgive him so they can go back to how things used to be. Mikana feels a huge wave of relief knowing that Yuga doesn't resent her anymore. But then she remembers that she's still standing there in her underwear. And now she's not sure which part is worse. The fact that Yuga walked in on her while changing, or the fact that he didn't even flinch. Either way, she's still pissed about it, so she decides to take out her frustration on him. Outside, Yuki and Levin can hear the chaos unfolding upstairs. But there's really nothing they can do to help, so they both shrug it off and leave Yuga to his doom. Finally free to head over to see Cecilia, Yuki makes his way through the streets and ends up passing by that same fortune teller again. Just like before, he assumes it's a scam and keeps walking without giving her the time of day. She clearly doesn't appreciate being ignored twice in one day. That said, it looks like Yuki's luck is finally starting to swing in his favor, so maybe he must have done something good without even realizing it. A little farther down the road, Yuki runs into the owner of the cake shop. She just found out that her musclehead brother accidentally crushed most of the cupcakes Yuki bought earlier, and she feels awful about it. Yuki tells her it's no big deal, but she still insists on making it up to him by handing him a fresh bag of cakes. As he continues on his way, things take a weird turn when three guys in suits suddenly surround him. For a second, it looks like he's about to get jumped, but turns out these guys are the personal staff of the kid from earlier, and they've shown up to thank Yuki for helping him out. To show their gratitude, they hand him a full bag of meat skewers. A short while later, Yuki finally makes it to Cecilia's house, but Happiness isn't too happy to see him show up so late. Still, he heads inside at last to meet Cecilia, and she's overjoyed to see him again because it's been way too long since they last met. Yuki says he brought her a little something, and Cecilia appreciates the gesture, but she's a bit thrown off by the combination of cakes and meat. Still, she brushes it off and offers to go make a pot of tea so they can sit and catch up over the snacks. Yuki's a little surprised since that's usually the maid's job, so Cecilia proudly tells him she's been learning a few home skills lately from Sophia, and now she knows how to make tea properly. After a few minutes of casual conversation, Cecilia learns that Happiness and Levin have hit it off lately, and that Yuki's gotten familiar with both Mikana and Yuga. But just as they're talking about them, they suddenly hear Yuga's voice calling for Cecilia from outside. A few seconds later, he bursts into her room, ready to pour out a heartfelt apology, except Mikana slams him aside with a punch, scolding him for barging in like a lunatic. Cecilia's completely confused by the whole thing, and Yuki's just stunned. They weren't expecting the entire group to crash the party like this, but apparently they all came with the same goal in mind, to say sorry. Mikana steps up first and sincerely apologizes for leaving Cecilia behind back then. But Cecilia quickly assures everyone that she doesn't hold any grudges. Her life wasn't the only one on the line that day. The rest of them had to face the Demon Lord without a healer backing them up. And from what she sees, Mikana was the first to rush back to check on her as soon as the battle was over, with Yuga and Levin not far behind. The fact that they all came running to help her, even after the hell they just went through, told Cecilia everything she needed to know. They never stopped caring. And honestly, it's not like they had much of a choice back then, so there's no reason for her to blame them. What matters now is that everyone made it out alive. There's no point in dragging guilt around anymore. Later, Yuki and Cecilia go for a stroll together, enjoying the peaceful vibe. At some point, Cecilia glances at him and asks if he had anything to do with everyone suddenly showing up to apologize like that. Yuki admits it. He gave them a gentle push in the right direction. After all, the whole thing kind of started because of him anyway. Cecilia smiles warmly, thankful that her friends are finally united again. The timing couldn't be better, so Yuki decides to go for it. He tells her he has something for her, then reaches into his pocket and pulls out the necklace he bought. He asks if she'll accept it, and Cecilia beams as she tells him she'll treasure it forever. That answer lifts a huge weight off Yuki's shoulders because honestly he had no idea what he would have done if she said no. Not long after, Cecilia asked Yuki to tag along on a mission because she got word from a far-off village asking for help. Yuki's quick to agree, ready to jump in and support her. But of course, Seek had to show up too. What was supposed to be some quiet time alone with Cecilia suddenly turns into a third-wheel situation. Seek clearly didn't want to be left out, and by the time he invited himself in, there was no graceful way to tell him to back off. Once they reach the village, Cecilia realizes the situation is way worse than expected. She'd heard it was a bandit attack, but the destruction tells a much darker story. The village chief comes out to welcome them, visibly relieved to see the renowned priestess herself, though he's got no clue who the two guys with her are. Cecilia introduces them as her companions and points out that both are proficient in healing magic. The chief lights up at that and leads them to the town hall where the injured are being treated. They jump right into action, healing villagers one at a time. For Yuki, this kind of mass healing isn't even a challenge, but he notices Cecilia pushing herself hard. He's quietly impressed by her dedication and how deeply she cares, but what really gets him thinking is the strange fact that despite all the wounds, none of the villagers were killed. The chief explains that halfway through the assault, the bandits were ambushed and forced to retreat. It was a lucky break, but Yuki finds it odd, like someone just happened to swoop in at the perfect moment. As he watches Cecilia continue working without rest, he starts to get concerned. She's clearly running on fumes, so he approaches and gently suggests she take a break. She refuses, saying she's not done helping yet, so with no other option, Yuki does what he has to, and he casts a sleep spell on her. Sure, knocking out a priestess in public probably wasn't the best move, but he calmly reassures everyone that she's fine and just needed some forced rest. Later on, Cecilia wakes up groggy and furious, demanding to know why the hell he knocked her out like that. Yuki apologizes right away, explaining that she was about to collapse from mana depletion if he hadn't stepped in. She doesn't like it, but deep down, she knows he's right. Cecilia admits she might push herself a bit too far, so she understands why Yuki stepped in like he did, but she still makes him promise never to use magic on her again without asking first. Yuki agrees without hesitation, and to ease her worries about the villagers, he lets her know she can finally relax because he and Seek already finished treating everyone while she was out. That makes Cecilia genuinely happy, and she thanks him warmly. Just then, the village chief walks in to check on how things are going. He's relieved to see Cecilia up and well, but he hesitates a bit before speaking again. There's one more thing he needs help with. A little girl named Teal lives on the edge of the village, and he was hoping they could go visit her. The group asks if she was hurt during the bandit raid, but thankfully, that's not it. She's safe, but she's been frail and sickly since the day she was born, so he thought maybe Cecilia could help her somehow. Cecilia agrees to give it a try and asks for directions to the girl's home. And a few minutes later, they arrive and finally meet Teal. The girl's clearly caught off guard when a bunch of unfamiliar faces suddenly show up in her house. But Cecilia quickly reassures her that there's nothing to be scared of. They're here because the village chief asked them to come. Teal looks like she's about to say something when she's suddenly hit with a heavy coughing fit. And just like that, it's obvious the chief wasn't exaggerating. This girl's in rough shape. Seek steps up and offers her some medicine he brewed himself. Teal eyes it suspiciously at first because, let's be real, mystery potions from a random dude aren't the most comforting thing. But Yuki backs him up, telling her that Seek knows what he's doing and the medicine is totally safe. Teal decides to trust him and drinks the whole thing. And to her surprise, her throat actually feels a little better right away. She lights up and thanks them, convinced that their arrival must have been a gift from the guardian deity. Yuki blinks because he has no clue what that even is, so Teal explains that there's a statue of a deity standing out by the village edge, and on the day of the raid, she had gone to leave an offering there. But while heading back, she suddenly felt sleepy and collapsed in the forest. That's how she avoided the bandits entirely, and she sure was the guardian deity who saved her. Seek suggests that what happened might have just been a coincidence, but Teal is completely convinced it was the guardian watching over her. She explains that when she was 7, she was once surrounded by wolves in the middle of the night, and there was no way she should have survived. But right before things turned fatal, the guardian deity appeared and struck the wolves down with black lightning. And ever since that night, it has continued protecting her. Teal doesn't see anything strange about the story at all, but to Yuki and Cecilia, sleep magic and black lightning sound dangerously close to demonic abilities. Naturally, that raises some red flags, but Teal insists there's nothing suspicious about her guardian and even offers to guide them to it herself to prove her point. However, when she finally shows them the statue, it's obvious there's no denying it. It's obviously a demon statue. Teal gets defensive immediately, saying she won't tolerate anyone insulting her beloved guardian. But she's still weak, barely able to stay on her feet, so Cecilia quickly apologizes for pushing her too far and escorts Teal back home. While Cecilia is away, Yuki takes a closer look at the statue and realizes it looks almost identical to the gargoyles they once had in the Demon Lord's castle. The moment he says it out loud, the statue suddenly comes to life and fires black lightning straight at him. Yuki narrowly dodges the attack and Seek steps in, managing to restrain the gargoyle. Now subdued, the two of them aren't sure what to do next. Seek suggests finishing it off, but Yuki stops him, saying he'd rather try talking first before jumping straight to killing it. After things finally settle down, the gargoyle sits there and cautiously asks if they really aren't planning to kill him. Yuki points out that the gargoyle was the one who attacked first, and the gargoyle quickly apologizes. He explains that once Yuki identified him as a demon gargoyle, he realized his cover was blown and panicked. Years ago, he was originally created to guard a temple, but bandits stole him along the way. Those same bandits eventually attacked this village, and when the gargoyle finally snapped, he wiped them out with black lightning. And that incident caused the villagers to start worshipping him as a guardian deity. As time passed, the villagers gradually stopped coming, until only Teal remained. And ever since the day he saved her as a child, she's been visiting the statue daily, cleaning it and leaving offerings without fail. Yuki asks if that means the gargoyle has no plans to harm anyone in the village, and the gargoyle replies that he doesn't care about humans at all. He just lives there, nothing more. If that's the case, then there's really no reason to worry, so Yuki gives a small nod and apologizes for the trouble. But before heading back, he turns to Seek with a quiet request. He basically asks Seek to return to the village ahead of them, just so he can enjoy a little alone time with Cecilia. But once he finally gets his wish and walks beside her in silence, he quickly realizes he doesn't have the slightest idea what to say. As they stroll through the woods, Cecilia accidentally trips over a root jutting from the path. Yuki rushes forward and catches her just in time, and for a few seconds, the two of them lock eyes until the moment drags too long and they awkwardly look away. Eventually, they return to the village, only to find that the bandits from before have returned for round 2, this time fully confident they'll win. But right on cue, Yuki, Cecilia, and Seek step in to confront them. The bandits aren't worried at all. They think sheer numbers will overwhelm the trio. That is, until Yuki turns to Seek and calmly gives him permission to fight with lethal force. And in the blink of an eye, the bandits start dropping left and right. Cecilia is stunned because she's never seen Seek in combat before, and his strength completely catches her off guard. But that's nothing compared to what Yuki brings to the table. When he joins the fray, he wipes out dozens of enemies in an instant. Even when one of them tries to blindside Cecilia, Yuki fries him with a blast of electricity like it was nothing. He has the entire battlefield under control. Everything seems to be going smoothly until they spot thick smoke rising from the direction of the Guardian Shrine. That can't be good, so Yuki immediately tells Seek to go check it out while he handles the rest of the fight. The remaining bandits try to regroup and charge in together, hoping to take down Yuki and Cecilia with brute force. But Yuki stares them down and flatly tells them that it doesn't matter how many of them there are. They'll never stand a chance. Then he casts a massive windstorm spell and wipes them all out in one blast. With the bandits finally dealt with, Yuki starts to worry when Seek doesn't return from the shrine. Something's wrong, so he and Cecilia make their way toward the shrine, and when they arrive, what they find stops them cold. The gargoyle is severely wounded, and Seek is being held up in the air by his throat. Yuki glares at the man with pure anger and demands to know who the hell he is. But before things escalate further, Cecilia explains that the man is Miller, the hero of the neighboring Gallus Empire. The revelation catches Yuki off guard because he didn't realize there was more than one hero in the world. But right now, Seek's condition is what matters most. Once Seek comes to, he explains what happened. When he arrived at the shrine, he saw Miller ambushing the gargoyle from behind while it was trying to protect Teal. Seek stepped in to stop him, but he was completely outmatched and lost the fight. Miller scoffs and says there's nothing wrong with killing a gargoyle, and if Seek got hurt, that's his own fault for being stupid enough to interfere. Without another word, Miller turns and starts walking back toward the gargoyle to finish the job. Yuki tells him to stop and tries reasoning with him, explaining that the gargoyle isn't harming anyone, but Miller doesn't care. Harmless or not, it's still a demon in his eyes, and if Yuki gets in his way, he'll cut him down too. Yuki responds by firing a lightning bolt straight at him, but the attack vanishes the instant it touches Miller's sword. Cecilia shouts for Yuki to pull back, warning him that Miller's weapon is a man-made magic sword designed to absorb any magic it comes into contact with. Against that thing, Yuki is at a serious disadvantage. Cecilia desperately pleads with Miller to stop, warning him that killing innocent people could spark a war between nations. Instead of backing down, Miller grins because he actually likes the idea. Killing people is one of his favorite pastimes, and a war would give him all the justification he needs to slaughter as many as he wants. At that point, it's obvious that this guy is completely unhinged, and there's no way Yuki can let him walk away. Miller laughs at Yuki, mocking him for thinking he has any chance of winning when his magic is useless against the sword. But Yuki doesn't flinch, and instead he starts firing spell after spell in rapid succession. The sword may absorb magic, but it was still created by human hands, and that means it has a limit. And after Yuki unleashes a barrage of his strongest attacks, that limit is finally reached. With a sharp crack, Miller's magic sword shatters into pieces. Yuki blasts Miller straight into a tree with a wind spell, slamming him hard enough that it looks like the fight's over. But turns out, Miller had one last dirty move. He launches a magic spear straight at Yuki. Cheap tricks like that don't land on him though, and he sidesteps it with ease. Problem is, the gargoyle was standing right behind him, and the spear was flying right for it. But at the very last second, Teal throws herself in the way and takes the hit square in the chest. Miller didn't see that coming, but he burst out laughing anyway. He finds it hilarious that a human girl would throw her life away to protect a demon. Yuki spins back toward him, seething, and swears he's not letting this bastard walk away. But Miller's already got a getaway plan, and he fires off a volley of arrows at Yuki's group, forcing him to throw up a shield to protect them. That moment of distraction is all Miller needs to slip into the forest and vanish. Yuki clenches his fists, furious. He let him get away because he was too dependent on magic. That rage bubbling inside finally boils over, and just like that, his full demon form bursts out. It's the first time Cecilia's seen this version of him, and it shakes her. She's afraid he's lost control, but right now, Yuki has only one thing on his mind: hunting Miller down and smashing his face in. He launches into the sky and locks onto Miller's location in seconds. Then he dives, grabs him by the skull, and slams him into the dirt before kicking him clean through a couple hundred trees like a wrecking ball. Miller's stunned. He can't believe a demon this powerful still exists, even after the demon lord was defeated. But he barely has time to think before Yuki flashes behind him, picking the beatdown right back up. Miller throws out everything he's got in a panic, but Yuki rips the weapon from his hands and drops him to his knees like it's nothing. He yanks him into the air by the throat, holding him there. One squeeze, that's all it would take to end him, but he stops because killing him like this is not what Cecilia would want. So instead, Yuki lets go and drops him straight into the river to let the current decide his fate. Later, Yuki returns to Teal's home, where Cecilia is waiting for him. He asks how everyone's doing, and she gives a relieved smile and tells him both Teal and Seek pulled through. She managed to heal them in time, and more than anything, she's just glad Yuki came back safe. A few days go by, and Teal seems genuinely content with her new maid gig in Cecilia's household, humming a cheerful tune while tidying up around the gargoyle, who for some reason now looks like an India statue. The demon casually tells her there's no need to clean up around him every single day, but she brushes it off, saying she actually enjoys doing it, then casually asks if he's got any clue where Yuki wandered off to. The gargoyle tells her Yuki went with Cecilia to the castle, which catches her totally off guard. Over at the castle, Yuki and Cecilia are both kneeling with one leg down as a female guard steps forward and declares that they're standing before Emperor Darts of this kingdom. Darts instantly gives off the vibe of someone with a serious superiority complex, jumping straight into business and saying the reason he summoned them has to do with the incident in the village that got hit by bandits. Yuki cracks a smirk, thinking to himself how every ruler, whether human or demon, always acts like they're above everyone else. But then out of nowhere, the Emperor drops the whole act and admits he sounds like a total jerk, deciding to just speak normally from now on. One of the guards, Sylvia, immediately scolds him and tells him to stay in character and act like a proper king. The two end up bickering over how a monarch should talk, while Yuki just stands there, silently wondering what the hell he's even witnessing. Eventually, Darts turns his focus back on them, saying he's been informed about the bandit ambush in the village and how the hero Miller from the Gallus Empire also showed up, but they managed to run him off and prevent any major damage. He tells them they'll definitely be rewarded for what they did, but Cecilia simply responds that she only did what was right and doesn't expect any compensation. Then the Emperor looks at Yuki and asks what sort of reward he'd want if it were up to him. Yuki decides to be strategic and replies that not even a king could give him what he's truly after. Darts, now curious, asks what that could possibly be. First he guesses money, but Yuki shakes his head. Then he jokes about wanting his own harem, but again Yuki gives him a no. Finally, the Emperor jokingly asks if he's after the throne itself, but for the third time Yuki refuses, calmly stating that the only thing he truly desires is Cecilia's love. Sylvia is stunned, Cecilia turns red, but the Emperor just bursts out laughing, saying that's the one thing he absolutely can't help with. Later, after they return to the mansion, Yuki drops to his hands and knees, forehead pressed to the floor, pleading for forgiveness from Cecilia. She scolds him, saying the royal chamber is the last place someone should be blurting out love confessions. He begs again, swearing he didn't mean to cause trouble and asking her not to stay mad. Meanwhile, her mother, who's been quietly watching from nearby, chuckles at the drama of young love and jumps in to stir the pot. With a sly grin, she declares that since Yuki screwed up, he needs to face the consequences, so he's banned from seeing Cecilia for an entire month. Yuki is stunned, completely blindsided, while Cecilia herself looks just as distressed. She doesn't want to be apart from him either and thinks the punishment is a bit much. Her mother lets out another laugh and says fine, they'll compromise 2 weeks instead. Then she calls for Happiness, who strolls in, grabs Yuki by the back of his collar without hesitation, and starts hauling him out of the room. As they head down the hallway, she pauses mid-step and tells her old captain to look outside. Yuki turns to the window and spots Seek sitting by himself on a bench, looking downright miserable. Happiness explains that ever since the village attack, Seek hasn't even played with her. He's just been sulking and keeping to himself. Yuki immediately realizes what's going on. Seek's eaten up with guilt, blaming himself for not protecting Teal and the gargoyle during Miller's ambush. Happiness then continues her task and drags Yuki all the way back to his room at the tavern, where they find Teal chatting with the gargoyle. The demon calmly reminds Teal to take care of herself, and even Happiness suggests that she return to the mansion. Teal agrees, and the two head out, leaving Yuki and the gargoyle alone. Yuki fills him in on everything that went down at the palace, but the demon just shrugs, saying there's really nothing he can do. The only option is to wait. Yuki's not satisfied with that answer, so he heads off to find Kramen, asking him to load him up with as many jobs as possible because he wants to earn his place at Cecilia's side for real. Time moves on. For the next 2 weeks, Yuki grinds through quest after quest, determined to grow stronger and improve himself. Finally, on the 15th day, he returns with a grin on his face, thrilled that he can finally go see Cecilia again. But before he can get far, the gargoyle stops him. He says they need to talk. Confused, Yuki turns toward him, only to watch in shock as the gargoyle shifts back into his true demonic form. And just like that, Yuki realizes something's wrong. The demon is falling apart, his body cracking and fading because the damage from Miller's attack was far worse than they'd thought. Yuki demands to know why the hell he didn't say anything sooner, but the demon calmly replies that it wouldn't have made a difference. There's no stopping what's happening to him. He figures he's got maybe a couple of days left before he completely falls apart and urges Yuki to promise he'll look after Teal. He warns that she's still seriously ill and could collapse at any time. That stuns Yuki, especially since Seek gave her one of his special brews, and those potions are usually miracle level. But the demon explains that he's been watching over her since she was a child, and for the past few weeks, something's definitely been off. He says once he's gone, she'll be completely alone, and she won't survive it. Yuki gives his word that he'll protect her no matter what. The demon lets out a soft smile, relieved to know that the girl will be safe. But Yuki quickly adds that he shouldn't start relaxing just yet because he's going to find a way to keep him alive too. The demon brushes it off, saying nothing can fix what's happening to him. But Yuki jokes that he still works great as living furniture, so he's not giving up yet. Without wasting time, he rushes out and finds Duke explaining everything. And since Duke is a demon himself, he immediately recognizes the issue and tells Yuki the fix is simple. Feed the gargoyle some magicite, and it should stabilize him completely. But before Duke can walk him through the rest of the process, Yuki bolts off, yelling thanks without even figuring out where the hell he's supposed to get the magicite from. But before he can start looking, he sees Cecilia sprinting toward him, panic all over her face. She grabs his arm and urges him to come now because Teal's gotten worse. They race back to the mansion, where they find Seek scrambling to mix more potions. He looks up and tells Yuki that things are going downhill fast, and despite everything he's tried, her fever just won't break. He's doing everything he can to buy her time, but if they don't act soon, it's going to be too late. He asks Yuki to gather the rare herbs he needs for a stronger batch. Yuki freezes because he has no clue where to even start looking, so Cecilia quickly steps in and says she'll come with him. The two of them rush over to the Merchants Guild, hoping to find both the herbs and the magicite, but they're out of stock. The merchant explains that due to a shortage of rams, people have started using magicite as an alternative. Yuki's heart sinks because without the twilight grass and magicite, he's staring down the real possibility of losing both Teal and the gargoyle. Right then, Kramen shows up and asks Yuki if he's ready to take on a quest. Yuki says he's not in the mood right now, but Kramen cuts him off and tells him to listen before saying no. He explains that the mission is to clear out a monster that's taken over a magicite cave. Since the place is flooded with magical energy, there's a good chance they'll find some twilight grass there too. Yuki perks up at the news, and to his relief, Kramen says he'll tag along. Even Sophia volunteers to join the team because she can't just sit back while one of her maids is fighting for her life. And by the time night rolls in, they reach a nearby village. Kramen says they'll crash there for the night and head to the cave at sunrise. Yuki's eager to head out right away, but Kramen tells him to cool it because wandering into monster territory at night is just asking for trouble. He adds that the creature they're hunting is no ordinary beast. It's a mutated rock eater that went berserk after gorging on magicite, so regular magic won't do jack against it anymore. And to make things worse, the client behind this request wants the thing captured alive, so they'll have to get creative. Come morning, they gear up and head into the cave at first light, and not long after, they come face to face with the monster, who's chomping down on magicite crystals like they're chocolate chip cookies. As soon as he spots them, he hurls a barrage of rocks. Yuki dives in and yanks Cecilia out of harm's way just in time, while Sophia smashes an incoming boulder with a brutal kick. Kramen deflects the ones aimed at him using some kind of strange magic technique. Yuki launches an offensive spell, but it bounces right off. The thing doesn't even flinch. Kramen warns him to ease up since they're supposed to bring it in alive. So he casts an Earthlock spell, trapping the monster in place, and Cecilia follows up by summoning divine chains to bind it. But the beast tears through the restraints like wet paper and smashes the ground to free itself again. Thinking fast, Kramen suggests a bold strategy: destroy the monster from the inside. His idea is to use his shadow magic to shield Sophia, letting her slip through the thing's mouth and take it down from within. Cecilia is clearly worried, but Sophia reassures her that this is exactly the kind of brutal, close-quarters fight she was born for. Yuki decides to get down to business and creates a frost cage around the monster, which is followed by Cecilia's divine chains. Sophia immediately gets covered by the shadow magic and jumps into the monster's mouth, disappearing inside. The monster realizes that something is wrong and tries his best to break out of the bonds, but both Yuki and Cecilia continue recasting their abilities to keep the monster in place. The monster has one more card up his sleeve though, as he shits out a bunch of smaller rock demons which are also impervious to magic damage. Realizing this, Yuki starts punching the crap out of the monsters, destroying them one by one while Cecilia struggles to hold on to the giant rock eater. Soon she falters and is pushed to the ground, while the monster looms over her menacingly, but before it could finish her, the monster falls to the ground and Sophia emerges from inside, successfully destroying the monster from within. Kramen immediately hugs her and tells Cecilia and Yuki to get the twilight grass. They immediately run deeper into the cave and find the twilight grass. But once Yuki talks about heading back, Kramen tells them to stay overnight as a journey in night can be very dangerous. Yuki is worried about Teal though and decides to sneak off into the night, but Cecilia knew that he would do something like this since he can actually fly. So she hands him the herbs, after which Yuki regrows his horns and wings before taking to the sky to rush back to Teal and the gargoyle. He hands off the herbs to Seek and rushes back to his room, forcing the magicite crystal down the gargoyle's gullet. Immediately, the demon's arm grows back, and he feels a rush of energy inside of him before he leaves the room and heads straight towards Teal. He enters her bedroom and finds her deep in her sleep, but this asshat wakes her up just to tell her that she will be all right now. Completely tired, Yuki flies all the way back to the other village to make sure no one gets to know about his true identity, tiring himself out but gets rewarded by being able to sleep in Cecilia's amazing thighs. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the recap and are excited for the next episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our daily recaps.